Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Rock and Roll Show, your favourite rugby fan podcast. What a weekend we've had in the Quilter Nations series. Scotland heartbreak at Murrayfield with a Damien McKenzie clincher. South Africa poured on in France, and England looked to welcome the All Blacks to Twickenham this weekend. Well, it's Adam Gaston, your host here. I'm with Dom Leach, my co-host. And Dom, who can stop this green machine in South Africa?
I thought you were going to be referring to Ireland to begin with, but no, the
No,
South
I'm
Africans.
afraid not quite yet, no.
They're ridiculous, aren't they? I mean, everything even before that game when Razzie posted on Twitter like predicting the 23 that would be in the team somewhat, and he got it absolutely bang on. I know that it's probably easier because there was a lot of players missing and whatnot. Yeah, just what a game of rugby. I thought France would hold on into the second half, especially when that red card came around. And then it was like they weren't even a man down. Like, it was such an incredible game in that, especially the second half, as I say.
Yeah, no, it was unbelievable. Just ebbed and flowed in that first half. And South Africa looked like they were struggling a wee bit to start off with that early Damien Penaud try. And we'll start into that one at the Stade de France because we had built it up as the biggest game of the weekend. And what a game it was. That early French try, South Africa coming back into it with a couple of penalties. And then you had that big moment of contention, that red card. And you sort of thought from that point on, they're up against it here, South Africa, and I don't really know how they're going to come back against France at the Stade de France. But what did you make of the grit that was shown by the South Africans in that second half?
They're just such a well-drilled group of players. I mean, it's almost like it's regimental, almost. France exploited them quite well, and spotted the gaps. I mean, Teddy Ramos had an incredible game. I think he is one of the world's best victims at the moment, and Penaud the same as up there with the wingers. I mean, I don't think I've ever watched a game where he doesn't score. But yeah, as I say, South African very, very resilient, it was just do or die. Like, there was no stopping it. Like, they just were never going to give up. And that's just what they're about. That's what Razzie has instilled in them. And I think even if they were 13 men down, I think they would play as though they are fighting for 15 kind of thing. So yeah, they're a different beast, and I'm really scared that they might do a three-peat.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the question that has to be asked now, where Stade de France, no one does that. The French take advantage of 15 men on the pitch, any gaps and spaces, and it just seemed, they had more will. It seemed like they had more will to win. And you had Sia Khaleesi, who came off. He was sort of sacrificed at half time because of that Luke Diager red card, and he was shouting from the sidelines, they're tired, get into them, basically. Get into them, Sasha, let's go. And it seems like they had balled up all that energy of it being, say, Khaleesi's 100th cap, their leader, not just a leader for their rugby team, the leader for their country, really, and how he inspires them. And they basically just used that energy and just poured through them in that second half. I thought the impact from the bench was quite stark compared to the French and South Africans. You had Grant Williams, RJ Snyman coming on in that second half, just to name a couple. Andre Esterhuizen as well.
Esterhuizen was unbelievable.
That utility back and forward. I mean, you talk about some of the impacts from the bench, Dom. What were you making of that?
Yeah, Andre Esterhuizen, world class. I mean, he was playing two positions basically. He was playing as a flanker, and he was also playing in the centres. Like, yeah, you might see that in everyday rugby, but to the standard that he was doing it was like he was everywhere. He was here, there, and everywhere, and it was mental. Also thought Ron Norkie had a very good game as well. I mean, I think him and Etzebeth are probably they're sport for choice for second rows, aren't they, with Diaga and Snyman? But I think him and Etzebeth, I think, are the two that are just lead above every other nation. But I mean, Bani Lubbock as well. He obviously came on, settled the game well, brought his impact. But yeah, it was a complete performance. I wouldn't say that everybody had the game of their life, but everybody just did put a massive shift in and just really, really helped their nation stay at the top of their game. And yeah, it was just incredible. I'm still shocked, really.
Yeah, it was shocking in the second half, the way they just peeled away from them, 32-17, 15-point gap at the end. I don't think anyone had anticipated that. I think they were always going to say there was going to be one score in this game. There's going to be a couple of points. It was going to come down to the last 10 minutes. He just absolutely powered away from them. I mean, we talk about the man regularly on this show because I think he's one of the most exciting talents in world rugby, really. Sasha Feinberg and Gonzulu. I didn't think he had his absolute best game. He missed a couple of kicks from the tee, but I think just the way he came through that test, I suppose, of it being, effectively, like the cauldron, the pressure cooker of the Stade de France. He hasn't really has he really faced that? I suppose he's faced it in a couple of games against the All Blacks, but that's at home. But it faced like a big away game. And I feel like that was his first real one. And the way he managed it, and I suppose, yes, he didn't have his best game, but the way he marshalled it in that second half and sort of kept them going really showed a lot of his mentality. Just the way he burned around the outside of the French defence and found that gap. He's just absolute box office to watch as well. But you look at the both of these sides and the sort of permutations of result, and you're thinking for France, it's quite a scarring one, isn't it? In terms of they were waiting for this for 2 years, really, since that World Cup quarter final that they lost that at home. And this one, it reminds me a lot of Ireland trying to get their own back against New Zealand last year and just falling short again. It's a bit of a gut punch, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's something like 10 games or 10 years since France have beaten South Africa full stop. So for them to do it once again at the Stade de France, it's kind of like what can we do? What do we need to do? And I think every nation is probably thinking, what can we do to beat this South Africa side? And to be honest, I don't really know. I think obviously it was demonstrated a couple of times in the Rugby Championship. They are just stacked everywhere. Everywhere you look in their team, it's just complete. Yeah, I'm giving a terrible journalistic point of view from this, but it's just they are just an unbelievable beast, and I just cannot see them ever losing for the next 2 years. Really,
is that much?
They are just world class, and Razzie is doing an unbelievable job, and he will go down as one of the greatest rugby coaches of all time because of what he's doing with this team. It's
absolutely,
yeah.
No, it's an unbelievable run, and the way they've been on 2 World Cups and they're still performing at this level. It shows the sort of the quality they have in their systems coming through all the way through. Been absolutely fantastic, and I think it's interesting you say that in terms of you can't sort of see where teams can sort of beat them. I think the one thing for the French here was no Antoine Dupont, no Gregory Aldry, no Charles Ollivon, a couple of these players, Cameron Walkie, different players like this. They had a lot of new players in the side, but I think all those sort of excuses probably dissipate when you go up a man realistically, and you've got that, you've got the momentum from that point on, and it just didn't seem like they were able to use it. Perhaps there was a little bit of inexperience on the pitch, and perhaps there was also a little bit of, we always talk about it being a little bit undercooked. Their first game of the autumn being against the mighty Springboks, and it seemed like they were unable to handle it. South Africa will be very happy nonetheless, and they'll go into Italy next week and they'll be very happy with themselves and be looking to make it a undefeated autumn, I would imagine. Into probably the second biggest game of the weekend, perhaps the most entertaining game of the weekend though, when you think of the drama, when you think of the last minute nature of it. It was New Zealand 25 and Scotland 17. Scotland just again unable to get over this the Caledonian streak that they call it, that the New Zealanders have over them. Never beat New Zealand. They go down 17-0 at halftime. We think, oh, here we go again. The All Blacks rock up to Murrayfield once more and do a job. And then they come back into the make it 17-all. We think, oh, all the momentum's with them. Couple of yellow cards for the All Blacks. The All Blacks just stick in. They just prevent a couple of tries. And then it's Damien McKenzie. It's Damien McKenzie that just clinches the game with just a couple of huge impacts. I think we'll start into him because I think he was the defining factor of this game. Let's hear your thoughts on Damien McKenzie's performance.
Yeah, I thought coming into this game, I had more of an impression of him that it was when New Zealand has to play Australia a second time in the Rugby Championship because of Bowden Barrett's injury, and he came in at 10, and he didn't have a very safe game. He didn't look comfortable. But in this one against Scotland, he came off the bench, just a couple of minutes into the second half, and was just on fire from minute, whatever minute he came on to up until the end. And for a guy who is like 80 kilograms, like 5'9", to be muscling off someone like Blair Kinghorn, basically throwing him into touch, staying in touch, was such great balance, and then just planting the ball down and scoring. It was an incredible try. It was so good. Then obviously backed it up with some pretty decent kicking from ball in hand. Then kept the game away from Scotland with the penalty as well at the end. So yeah, just a very, very good performance from Damien McKenzie.
Yeah, and they were really needing something, to be honest, and it sort of shows all the All Blacks are about in that first half. Just absolute, just clinical nature. Cam Roygaard scoring early on into that game. Great pick up from the ruck by the second rower for the All Blacks. Yeah, absolutely huge start for them. And then I think Wallace's TE was very, very good in this game, very physical. But in that second half, Scotland just came out and they were just, I've never seen, well, I have, but I haven't seen recently perhaps a period in a game where the All Blacks were so dominated by Scotland. It was for about 20-25 minutes. They were just all over them. They had all the territory. I think there was two yellow cards in that time for Artie Savea. And they were just all over them, and it was a superb attacking performance from Scotland. Darcy Graham was superb. I mean, had Gaston. I thought Rory Hutchinson actually was very, very good in attack and defence. Blair Kinghorn in the wide channels, and Darcy Graham, of course, as well. And then the forwards as well. A big thing I think Scotland came into this game was they came in with size in their pack. Gregor Brown was absolutely fantastic. Gregor Brown, who hasn't had a lot of caps for Scotland, huge in the carries, huge at the breakdown, and he really just got into them in that second half. And I think there was a point where it was 17-all, and there was an intervention from Cody Taylor just 5 meters from the line, just to knock the ball out of the hand of the Scottish carrier. And then there was Cam Roygaard to stop spinning Darcy Graham going around about three and shoving off about three men in the corner, just about knocking the ball over the line, which would have put Scotland into the lead. And it's just those little moments, those little interventions, which then allowed just New Zealand just to say, right, we're still level here if we can just get a foothold. And it was that one moment where the Scottish line speed just wasn't up to scratch, where they just weren't putting enough pressure on the kickers for the All Blacks, and they pull it out the back to Damien McKenzie. There's a Scottish backfield player, a bit, I think it was maybe Kyle Steyn, a little bit out of position, and he finds the 50-22. They get up to the 5 meter mark, and then the try comes not too far away later after that. So it's just those little moments and those little lapses of concentration that those sides like the All Blacks, who consistently do it, who know how to win the biggest rugby matches, that's just what they do. And that's a level Scotland they have to keep pushing to get to, because they're just not quite on that All Black level where they can just be ruthless and finish games. They're a fantastic rugby side, but they just can't quite finish games against these big sides, and it'll be such a disappointment to them. But I guess my question is, what do you think needs to change for Scotland so they can get on this? Is it just drilling it again and again and again, or what do you think is missing for Scotland to really start to win these games against your Irelands, your New Zealands, your South Africas?
I think, like you say, I think it's a winning mentality that they probably lack at the minute, and finding a winning mentality, it's obviously easier said than done. It's just like, we just need to start winning games, but it's not just winning games. It's thinking, right, we're still in this, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, however many points down at 70 minutes or, deep into a game, and go, we can still get something from this, or we can still win this. And I think, in the past, Scotland have probably conceded a little bit and thought, oh, well, we're 4 points down. There's only 4 minutes left. We're out. Like, we're not going to come back from this. And I think it's, like I say, it's that shift of mentality from the players that are coming into the system, and even, the older players in there, your Finn Russells, your Tuid Velocities, your Ben Whites, like all of them who have been in this squad for so long, who have experienced Scotland probably in some really dark times, have got to turn around to everybody else and be like, look, we are a really good nation, like you say, Adam, but we just need to start believing in ourselves and realizing we can do so much more. So I think that's where they're gonna start overturning results, and they need to start doing it sooner rather than later, because they are going to be a serious contender. Well, I wouldn't say a serious contender, but they have the potential to go far in the World Cup, and surprise a lot of people.
Yeah, well, that's something that will be very much on their minds in the coming months, because that World Cup draw will be coming out soon after this Autumn Nations series is done. But you're exactly right. They're such a good rugby nation. They're so good to watch. I don't think they've been this good since the 90s. You think of probably all back when Gregor Townsend was playing. Gregor, is there any more Gregor Townsend can do? I mean, I've seen a couple of things online where it's just like a couple of stats have been sort of thrown out there that Gregor Townsend, out of I think 18 games against Ireland, South Africa, New Zealand, he's 1-0. Is that harsh? Is there any basis for that? Is it just a question of quality that these sides have that maybe Scotland lack, or do you think there's any coaching problems, or what do you think there?
I think the question you've got to ask yourself is, if you're going to replace someone, who are you going to replace them with? And I quite like Gregor Townsend. I think he's the epitome of Scottish. And when you're wanting someone to lead a nation, there's no one better than someone who is from the heart of the country and would die on the sword for the nation. So I think, yes, he probably is the right person, but maybe he needs to look at the people around him, of his coaching staff, because there are so many good coaches, in the world now, that don't necessarily have to be from Scotland. And if I was to use people from England, there's examples, I'm struggling to find any right now. But the point I'm saying is that I think, yes, he is the man to lead Scotland, be the face of Scotland's coaching staff, but there's probably other people that he could look to maybe give him some help here and there.
Yeah, I think it's perhaps maybe I don't personally subscribe to the view that Gregor Townsend should be replaced. I think that what he's done for Scottish rugby is it's unbelievable, really. It's the way he's got them playing, and that's a lot of why you want to watch your nation. It's the way they make you feel, the way you play rugby, and some of the results they have had against especially teams like England, it's been great. Perhaps it's maybe a system thing, in terms of the wider Scottish rugby system. You see regions being cut in Wales, so there maybe needs to be a wider talent pool in Scotland, potentially, maybe to get more and more quality. I mean, they have a lot of quality already, but do they have the quality of, do they have the system in place that Ireland have? Maybe they could find something from that. But it's just an interesting question, because it feels like for Scotland, this is a stopgap moment where it's like, right, we've lost another game to the All Blacks. We lost another game to one of the big 3 or 4. Do we need to have a look at anything here, or what's the deal? And I think this big game against Argentina next week will be a huge marker. I think that's one they definitely need to win to sort of, I guess, silence any of those critics. But we'll move on to Argentina, who had a very handsome victory in Cardiff. I was there to watch it in person, and just absolutely superb. Steve Tandy's reign starts off with a rather heavy defeat, 50-28. Wales getting 4 tries on the board, showing some great, really, really great signs of attacking rugby there. Really fluid offloading, especially for that Thomas Williams first try. But it was just little mistakes here and there. It was just a bit too easy for Argentina to, I guess, find their way around the outside edge and gain chances. And 52 points conceded at home, for any Tier 1 nation side, that's not really... You can't
It would
really
be
say
all right
that's...
if they were a Tier 1 nation.
Yeah, but I mean, technically, you probably have to say they still are, Dom, but 12th in the world, really, and that's the conversation we'll have to have, especially next week after the Japan game, and see what happens there. But what did you make of this one?
It's a positive start, I will say that, for Tandy. They're playing much, much better than they were at the Six Nations, 9 months ago. So they've got to take the positives where they present themselves. You know, this is one of their first games. Well, it's their first game under a pretty much new system where Reece Stammett's back in. They've established people in the main positions as well. Now they've got, like, Dan Edwards at fly half was very, very good. I thought he had a superb game. I mean, you know, they've got leaders. They've got Thomas. They've got Dulac back. They've got Jack Morgan, Blair Murray as well, Llewellyn Rogers. You know, they have really, really set positions where they need them. I think even when you're looking further afield, like in terms of depth, like it's not necessarily top quality. Like when you look at a South Africa team, their bench is just like, you know, it's like bringing the first team back on. But for Wales, it's not. I'd say their bench or their depth is less of a concern than for someone like Scotland, maybe, because I feel like that's where Scotland were bit. I'd say that's where Scotland were bitten so hard, is that they couldn't actually compete with the strength of bench that New Zealand had in comparison. Now, I'm not saying that the depth that Wales has is better than Scotland. I'm just saying that, or the quality is better. I'm just saying that I feel like Scotland kind of fumble around almost a bit more to kind of go, okay, where are we going to go? So if Finn Russell goes out, okay, they got Tom Jordan then, and it's like, okay, but then where do we go after that, kind of in certain positions?
I think the quality for Scotland would be better, but I think it's maybe you're right in terms of the drop off between positions would be higher between like a Finn Russell and then a Blair Kinghorn at fullback or whatever. That sort of thing is what you're sort of saying.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think it's not terrible, but you'd expect, you know, they put 28 points on them, fair enough. But yeah, like you're saying, to still leak 52 against an Argentina who weren't prolific, scoring tries in the Rugby Championship is, it's not ideal. But we know that Argentina are a tier 1 nation, 100%.
Top 6.
They are
top 6 now.
Yeah, now top 6. So they will, you know, as it stands for the World Cup, they will be in that upper echelon of being drawn first, whereas Wales are dangerously close to being put in that third band. So yeah, it's only 0.3 points that is separating them from Wales. So it's going to be a huge game.
Yeah, that's going to be absolutely huge next week. Yeah, I tend to agree with a lot of your assessments there. Just a lot of silly mistakes that were made. Argentina put 52 points. You know, they don't often score that many points against sides. They are a very dangerous side, of course. Argentina, we very much know that. But yeah, for Wales, it's so you look at the wider picture of Welsh rugby. And I listened to Dave Redden on the Good, the Bad and the Rugby podcast last week with a very interesting interview, the way he was talking about the sort of the challenge that he was taking on as the new CEO of, or the new director of performance rather, at Welsh Rugby, and how the sort of the wider system, how they need to fix it from basically the foundations up. They need to change the system. They need to get more quality rugby players. And that always swirls in the back of my mind when I'm watching Wales. It's like they don't have the quality to be competing with sides like Argentina, New Zealand, South Africa, the biggest nations in the world. They don't have the quality to be competing with. So I don't think the result was a surprise to any. I think there was, as you said, signs of very good attacking rugby and some good combinations, especially Williams and Edwards at 9 and 10. I thought they played very well together. I thought the centres looked a little bit... I wasn't too impressed by that combination of Thomas and Llewellyn. Bit of a silly mistake from Thomas to get himself sin-binned with that, I think, kick out at Paulo Matera. I'm sure it could potentially be cited for that as well. We're not quite sure. But yeah, I think there is certain positions where they do have like undeniable quality, and Jack Morgan, he'll be a huge miss for the rest of the autumn. But there is good signs there, but I think it's very much for Wales. It's not the 2027 World Cup. They're going to build and build and build, see how they get on at the 2027 World Cup. But it is that 2031 World Cup where hopefully it's a very much a long term project, really, because they just don't have the quality. They've got some good good players, but they don't have the quality to be competing with these sides in the next couple of years. It's going to be more longer than that. Be very interesting to see how they get on against Japan. I think we all want Welsh rugby back to its very best, and that is going to be a long process. Japan next week has to be a start of that, and it's got to be a win. They've got to stay in that band too, as you say. But we'll both be at that game, so we look forward to seeing that one live. And that'll be a very hotly contested one. Yeah. But we'll move on to Japan, who were dispatched by Ireland fairly convincingly in the end, 41 points to 10, sort of what we had expected pre-kickoff. But to be honest, the Japanese really came out in this game, and they put it on Ireland, and Ireland were really struggling in that first half.
Yeah.
10 at the break, it went in at. And just some really great physicality from the Japanese. They were finding spaces. They were putting Ireland under pressure. A lot of handling errors from the Irish team. A bit of a changed Irish team, but still a strong Irish team nonetheless. And the really, really strong performance from them. From an Irish perspective, a lot of handling errors, a lot of sort of things, moves maybe not paying off. I don't think Andy Farrell was particularly impressed. I think he's asked, was that sort of an improvement for you? Was that what you wanted to see? And he said no. And I think that was correct, really. Wasn't a particularly impressive performance from the Irish, despite pulling away at the end. Where do you think Ireland are at?
No, definitely not. They've probably done the reverse of what Wales have done since the last Six Nations, and they've definitely taken a step off the gas, or kind of slipped on one of their steps maybe on the way up to the top. And I'm just not quite firing on all cylinders of what they were, because I feel like we'll go into this upcoming Six Nations and people won't be as scared of facing Ireland. I think it'll be like, okay, we've got a chance, we could actually beat them, whereas before it's been like, okay, we're playing Ireland. We've got to have a really good. Yeah, it's the green machine, which South Africa has now definitely claimed that off you. But no, I think you're right. I think that first half, Ireland just were like, they were a bit shell shocked. They were like, well, what are we up against? And then it almost took them a minute to go, okay, I'm not trying to be too offensive, but it's only Japan. We know we can beat them. We can outplay them. So that's what we've got to do. And that second half, they were so much better and very good. So, I think they've got a challenge next week, obviously facing Australia, and then of course when they play South Africa as well. So it's I think these are the perfect fixtures that they needed to Ireland, because they haven't been the top best that we know, and that everybody kind of loves from Farrell and his coaching staff. So yeah, I think if he can kind of get them back on track, and obviously it would be better to see what he can do with a full strength squad, because I think we'll see Gibson Park coming back in, Sheehan obviously coming back in, and amongst any others. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what top Ireland can do, and see if they can break down an Australian team who haven't been firing on all the cylinders.
No, you're exactly right. That's a big one for both teams on this weekend, rather. Yeah, I think what you say about Ireland there, quite slipping a little bit, slipping on the step, stuttering. We had all feared it after the World Cup. That how long can this Irish team keep up with their levels that they're showing? And we knew a lot of players are getting older, and is there certain elements of the game that is being figured out? And I think it is being figured out a little bit, which is concerning when you think about the long-term prospect of a 2027 World Cup. I guess wasting this time we've got with Andy Farrell, because Andy Farrell is without a doubt, he's one of the best coaches in the world, and one of the best coaches Ireland have had, really. And yeah, I don't really know, because I spoke about last week, Ireland need to get new players in, and they did that this week. They got, not new players, but they need to get a couple of players from the fringe who are performing well for the clubs into the fray. They've got that with Tom Farrell, Jacob Stockdale, Nick Timoney, who I think all played fairly well. Players like Gus McCarthy, Tom Clarkson, a lot of boys, not a lot of new blood, I guess. And they did get that in, and there was a little bit of teething problems with, they got a lot of changes, and they figured it out at the end, and there were some good performances. But I just don't know if that. Again, you speak about the depth and quality that an All Blacks and a South Africa have. I'm not quite sure it's quite there for Ireland. whether it's they can continue this conveyor belt of talent that is coming. I'm not sure it's quite there, and it'll be interesting to see in the next couple of weeks how they perform against the two of the big four in the Southern Hemisphere, and very much interested to see what happens against Australia, who very much need a win after what happened in Italy. We'll move just on to that. 26 points to 19. Italy beat Australia for the second time in their history after that win in 2022. Australia came out and they were winning in that first half. Jack Gordon playing very well in this game. They were playing some decent rugby, and it feels like it was an Italian team with just renewed optimism, an Italian team that could believe that they can beat these tier 1 nations, and that's exactly what they did in that second half. The 2 tries a try for Monty Ioane, a try for Louis Lina, and just some great jeu, as you say, Dom, played by the Italians. What did you make of their performance in this victory for them?
Yeah, I thought it was top draw, kind of not like they were kind of something over here. I think they will have recognised that Australia are, they're a very good first half team. They like to come out and, hammer out a team. So it was a good decision by Italy to kind of get that scoreboard pressure, not waste time in Australia's 22 and coming away, often maybe coming away with nothing, just kind of going, right, we've been here for a while, go for the uprights, get some points on the board and just keep that pressure. Because if they didn't do that, 12-0 at half time compared to 9-12 is a very different story. They'll go into there they're going to go in at half time and come out at half time with belief. And absolutely they did. They scored 2 really nice tries in quick succession as well. I thought Paolo Garbisi had a very good game. Louis Lina was unbelievable. I'm so glad he's back in that Italy squad because I think he's very criminally underrated and kind of goes under the radar, I guess, because he's an Italian player. Not many people get that recognition, but Italy they are so, so good. And it's such a joy to watch them every single time. Menoncello again, another player who is just a unbelievable player. Varney had a brilliant game. Chef's kiss, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as I say, Stephen Varney had a very good game as well. And yeah, they were it was top quality. And Australia I think maybe take a bit shocked in that second half, but Italy were just very resolute, very, not wanting to give anything too silly away. And Australia just didn't seem to have the fight or the want to get back into it. And I don't know if it's because they have had such a heavy summer. Well, they've played so many test games over the last 4 or 5 months that maybe it's just catching up with them a little bit, having to do all of this all over again. It's a lot of travel, a lot of here, there and everywhere. And yeah, maybe it's just getting to them a little bit.
Yeah, I think for the Italian perspective, Stephen Varney, you mentioned there, since his move to Exeter Chiefs, I think he's been
resurgent
players in the English Prem, and he's looking really, really, really good. A player that you sort of always thought he could be. And he's been really, really good for them. Italy again, another victory over these big sides tier 1 nations, and they're very firmly in that tier 1 or now. You'd have to say victories against Scotland, Wales a couple of times, Australia now twice. They compete with New Zealand. We'll see what they can do against South Africa. That'll be a tough test, of course, but they're putting it on these teams, and it's great to see that just how Italian rugby is developing again and again and again. On an Australian point of view, we had a lot of optimism after the Rugby Championship, after the end of the Lions tour as well. And it seems like that sort of fizzled out. I'm not quite sure where it's gone. I'm not quite sure what's going on. I think something that was cited was a lot of changes between the 9 and 10 halfback pairings. Jack Gordon and Carter Gordon starting in this game. I think there's been 6 or 7 sort of or maybe even more than that, halfback pairings sort of throughout the year, and that's no good for your continuity. And I think that's sort of one of the reasons that it's been cited for that. Obviously, got James O'Connor coming back into camp. He will most likely, I would imagine, start at 10.
Yeah.
To give a little bit more experience, a bit more control against Ireland. Where do you cite this sort of, I guess, that fizzling out of optimism on the Aussie side?
I think, like I said, I think there's been a lot of chop and change, and there's some internal stuff going on. Obviously, they didn't get Will Skelton. They haven't had Will Skelton at all. They couldn't have Suoli. Sorry, not Suoli. They couldn't have Ikitau at the start. they couldn't have Hooper at the start. So, and then, as I say before, they've played so much rugby. They've had 3 Lions tests, 6 games in the Rugby Championship, and then all these as well. So it's been a hefty summer for them, because it's not just small games either. These seriously matter. Like, of course they wanted to win the Lions tour. Of course they wanted to give a fighting chance in the Rugby Championship. Of course now they've got to back up all those good performances that they've had after people saying they're a rubbish nation. That they've really dropped off. They've improved. They've proved that they are really back up there and should be a tier 1 side, but now they're just kind of lagging a little bit, and it's sad to see, but it's understandable nonetheless.
Do you think it's an emotional energy dump?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's emotional, it's physical. I think rugby players are conditioned to go through so much physically. They'll play ridiculous amounts of games in ridiculous amounts of time. But it's not often discussed the mental toll that playing all these games can do, because there's so much adrenaline that goes through you from a week by week basis, from training, because you're absolutely locked in from training, and then you've got to be in the gym, and then you've got to be eating right, and then you've got to be in the zone from basically as soon as you wake up in the morning to playing potentially in an evening. So yeah, the mental toll is serious, and I think people can underestimate how difficult it can be for a rugby player. So yeah, I think there's a lot that's probably going on in Australia, but if they can get through this period and survive, and still hopefully they'll obviously want to hit above 6 and above, because then they get a good draw in the Rugby World Cup, and with it being a home and one, it'll be that much better for them.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's exactly what they're hoping for the next 2 weeks again in those games against Ireland and France. The emotional energy dump, that certainly that would be a theory of mine. I know that this is high level professional sport, and you can't really afford for that, because any sort of drop that you're going to get punished for. And I think that's sort of what happened. I suppose when you've got sort of everything, you've got. I guess Joe Schmidt, he's not going to be sticking around, so sort of got that going on in the background. You've got this whole thing with players, but not being able to join up with the side because they've got their club commitments, and perhaps Rugby Australia not pushing maybe hard enough for that. Some might argue. And you've got the Lions tour that only comes around once every 12 years. You've got this whole existential crisis of rugby union in Australia, and when you just put all that together, it's a lot of pressure to put on a side, and it's sort of an existential, I guess, crisis that's not many other rugby nations really have, to be honest, because it has been a huge year for them, really, hasn't it? We'll see how they can respond in Dublin this week, but they will look to be finishing strong after a couple of difficult weeks in the Quilter Nations series. But we'll finish up on the results for the weekend with England versus Fiji, which finished 38 points to 18. The English Steve Sporfrick's men getting it done again, but it wasn't made easy for them, Dom. A Fiji side which is just absolute joy to watch, and are very much up there with competing with these big sides nowadays. They've got the quality, and they really do put it on teams now. What do you make of this one from England perspective?
Excuse me. I think the first half was slow. It took us a while, but I mean, it wasn't that we were terrible by any means. We were still very good, but it was patient. It was, let's not wear ourselves out here, because we've still got 40 minutes to go in the second half. I think I'm starting to understand Steve Borthwick's plan, and I'm starting to get more and more on board as I watch England play. It's this kind of 6-2 split that he's doing, basically rinsing the fact that he's got so much quality in the back row, and I very much like what he's starting to do. There's still a couple of things that I disagree with, but I think you're never going to completely agree with every decision that the coach of a national team is going to make, especially if you're home nation. So yeah, I thought first half it was good, but then second half came out, bench was rinsed, and we were on top form. Fiji gave us a good run for their money, and I thought it was going to be quite close going into the second half as well. I thought they'd give a bit more, but they ran out a bit of gas, and it was just quality that overshined them, and the endurance of a rugby match.
Yeah, well, that's the big difference between sides like Fiji and sides like England, I guess, it is that sort of that kind of that's maintaining of standards and quality for 80 minutes. England have that bench to rely on, the POM squad, as it's been called, who came on and finished the job off for them. Henry Arundel coming back with a try. Fiji are absolute joy to watch. I think the way they competed, I think they'll take a lot of heart from that. I know they won 2 years ago, but I think this is a renewed England side, who are very much performing quite well, and I think they'll take a lot of hope from the way they performed against them. England, I think it was a good warm-up for New Zealand, for next week, which we'll go into the upcoming fixtures for this weekend. And that biggest one is undoubtedly England-New Zealand at the Allianz Stadium, Twickenham. Saturday, 3:10 kickoff. It's got all the billing for it here. It's got all the drama. Dom, you're going up against an All Black side, second in the world. Not infallible All Black side, but very much an All Black side who knows how to win. They know how to get the job done against. They've showed that time and time again. How do you reckon this one's going to go?
Well, I was very shocked, first of all, to see Steve Borthwick announce the squad so early, but I don't hate it because it's a statement of intent. It's basically turning around to what's his name?
It's turning around
to Scott Robertson. Scott Robertson, yeah.
Yeah, Scott Robertson.
It's turning around to Scott Robertson and going, look, this is how we're going to play. Ball's in your court now. We're going to play our game. You can play your game, or you can adjust it to how we've lined up. So it's a very statement kind of move. But I like what we've got. Not the first team, not the starting front row that everybody was probably expecting, but it's to balance what's to come with the bench that will come on for New Zealand, with the likes of Williams, Takiaho, and Tosi as well. So it's a good move. It's a smart move for sure.
Is it a scrummaging front row? Is that what the purpose of it, do you think? You're talking about Finn Baxter, Jamie George, Joe Hayes.
Yeah, so I think they'll be told, right, go foot to the floor first half, and then you'll get 5-10 minutes in the second half, and then we'll take you all off, bring on Genge, Stewart, and Cowan Dickey, and they can manage a very good, strong second string front row that is coming on for New Zealand. And he did it against Australia. It worked well. He did it against Fiji, and they flourished in the lineouts and in the scrums. So I think it works well. It's a system that he clearly likes. So if, as the old saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. As well, no Ollie Chesham, but Alex Cole's a very worthy replacement. Going back to 3 sevens in the back row as well, which is not a move that everybody would go for, but one that, again, he clearly likes. But this is the thing about Steve Borthwick. He has systems that he likes. He has players that he likes, and he is kind of disregarding what the norm is and just trying something new, going for something that is a bit unorthodox.
Very analytical.
He is very analytical, yeah. Even with the centre partnership of Dingwall and Lawrence, I thought Lawrence had a very good game against Fiji. Kind of managed how huge they are, and that centre partnership screams like you're fighting off physicality. I don't think Dingwall's had a great autumn series so far, but the size that he possesses and just how tough he is about getting around the park and just putting in shot after shot, I think it's not a bad player to have in the centres by any means. And then a back three that doesn't feature Tommy Freeman due to injuries, which is a bit unfortunate, but play the cards that you dealt, kind of thing. But
Freddie Stewart back in there to
left side the better.
You're not a fan. I know you're not a huge fan of Freddie for England. Yeah. That he likes his players, as you say. Fraser Dingwall, he's not probably the most box office player, but he's certainly someone that will come in and he'll be very solid, as you say, in defence. He'll counteract that threat. I think Ollie Lawrence coming back into 13 was probably quite predictable because he is without a doubt the best. In my opinion, he's the best 13 or best centre I think England have, to be honest. And just what he brings to the game, physicality, the running threat. He's almost sort of. He's unbenchable. He's on. You can't go without him really, and it's interesting the way the back row as well. Sam Underhill, he has a very good track record against the All Blacks, put in some monster hits against them down the years, so no surprise to see him in there. I think he'll very much be given a task of just going for Bowden Barrett, going for Damien McKenzie, going for just whoever's in sight really. Guy Pepper, I think he's placed a lot of trust in Guy Pepper and Finn Baxter in the pack there. Younger players, but players he clearly quite likes, Don.
Yeah, I love Guy Pepper as a player. I think Ben Young summed it up quite well. He was the Henry Pollock before Henry Pollock came along. You know, kind of this unknown kid who's kind of come out of nowhere playing unbelievable rugby. But I think Pollock got more of the accolades because he's got the flair about him. He's got the try scoring ability about him. Whereas Pepper just does all of the dirty work and goes completely unnoticed. And he's so good. He is going to be playing for it. You know, he'll get 100 caps easily for England through his career. He's still only 21, 22. So yeah, he's going to be right up there with some of the best back rows.
Very strong Bath team as well. I mean, I'm sure he's going to be getting a lot of Premiership trophies and potentially some Champions Cups as well if Bath continue going the way they go. On a New Zealand perspective, after last week, you know, there was a couple of issues against Scotland, a couple of yellow cards, for example. That discipline sort of started wavering. I think if that happens against England will perhaps have the more you know, potentially ruthless edge to finish the chances perhaps Scotland missed. But where do you see the All Blacks in terms of a starting team? Does Damien McKenzie start for you? Do you think they'll rejig it at all, or what changes do you think they'll make?
I don't think Damien McKenzie will get a start. I think because they've got a system that kind of works with that back three of Clark, Carter, and Jordan. I think they'll just stick with that. I thought Feingarn, I don't know how to pronounce it.
Lester Feingarn.
The outside centre, that's the one. Well done.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I thought that centre partnership lacked something. I quite like Quilter Nations has emerged as a starting centre for New Zealand quite consistently now. Will do a good job. Obviously, no Geordie Barrett now. He's out for the rest of this test, so they've had to balance that. But they did all right against Scotland. But you can tell there's that element missing of, you know, that ball playing 12 who can still carry hard and basically fill Geordie's boots. It's a difficult job to do. But I don't think they'll change too much really. There wasn't any major injuries of concern, but I think, like you said, the discipline thing will be a big thing because England can just entice teams like that. They know the tricks of the trade. You know, the front row battle will be huge for sure. You know, De Groot, Cody Taylor. It's going to be something special. Yeah. That's where they could. I think the front row battle is going to be a very good one to watch because now that Borthwick has kind of established his plan of kind of rinsing the bench and just going, you know, man for man, 3 for 3, just off. Maybe Scott Robinson will change his plan of how he deals with that because you've got three British and Irish Lions coming off the bench there, up there with 3 of the best front rowers in the world right now. So yeah, you've got to balance that. It's got to take something special.
Yeah, that'll be an absolute mouthwater. I think the Tamati Williams versus Ellis Genge. Oh, that's going to be for anyone that loves a scrum, for anyone that loves a bit of physicality around the game, which I think is quite a few people that watch rugby. That's going to be a headliner for sure. Yeah, the way the All Blacks perform this week, that'll be a big sign of sort of them moving forward. If they can beat England, I think that sets them up really nicely for the sort of the next couple of years building into that World Cup. It's undoubted they have the quality. It's just whether they can manage games, you know, and against time after time and keep winning those games. You saw a couple of times in the Rugby Championship where they obviously lost against Argentina. They got absolutely battered from South Africa. That's something that they'll sort of hopefully try and sort of peter out, you know. They'll try and put that to the side and really start to build some momentum because it's undoubted they have stacks of quality. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's going to be an absolutely huge one to Twickenham this weekend. I'm very much looking forward to that. It'll be interesting to see as well how Henry Pollock gets up. This is probably the biggest test, I'd say, for the young man. I mean, we all eyes are always on him, I suppose, with the sort of the eyes that he's bringing to the game and the character that he is. It'll be interesting to see how he gets up against the All Blacks. How do you think
Yeah.
he'll go?
I think it's been good that when he's featured off the bench, it's been good. I thought he was maybe silenced a little bit by Fiji just because of their size. We know he's not a massive beast like Sam Underhill is, or Ollie Lawrence, but I think he was quieting down somewhat. First game for England that he didn't score a try, so that would be I'm sure he'll be beating himself about that. But no, I think absolutely, like you say, this is a big opportunity for him to come on and improve himself and do some real damage. You look at who he's played. He's played Wales, Australia, and Fiji. So yeah, you're going to be up against the All Blacks now, and I mean it's going to be a massive game for a lot of these players, really. Guy Pepper as well, as we previously mentioned, it's going to be huge for him. Alex Coles as well, not had a lot of experience at a top level. So yeah, it's going to be a big game for all these players, and I think England have a real chance of hitting them where it hurts. New Zealand, I think New Zealand will obviously be a very tough opposition, and it's not going to be a straightforward win, and there's going to be some real soul searching from England to get a victory, but I think it's not out of the question by any means.
And if it was in the question, who wins this game?
For once, I'm going to be biased, and I'm going to say England to win it by 7.
7, wow, okay. That's
I
a
think
nice thing to say. I'm not so sure. I think I fancy the All Blacks for this one again. I think by 3 points. I think they're just on a roll. They just know how to win rugby matches. I'm not quite sure England are quite there after the Fiji game. I'm not quite sure they're in the level where they can beat the All Blacks. So I'm going to go for an All Blacks win there. But moving on, we'll talk about Ireland and Australia quick, and the rest of the fixtures quickly as we're running out of time. There's been a lot to get into, but Ireland and Australia, what are you expecting from this one?
Okay, let's rattle it off. I reckon Ireland will win. Australia, I don't think they're still very settled, as I've said. I think Ireland, once now they'll put a far stronger squad out against this Australia side, it will be something a bit more that we know. I think it'll be a bit closer as well, but I think Ireland will probably come away with it in the second half, pull ahead. We'll see an Ireland that we're used to, but as I say, I think the big thing will be that Australia will just not quite be firing on all cylinders, and we'll have a bit of a tough end to this Quilter Nations series.
Yeah, well, they absolutely. This is one they definitely need to win, as they head to Stade de France next week. But it's one that I'm not quite sure they can do. To be honest, I'm not quite sure they're in the place to do it. So I'd go for an Irish win as well, probably by about 7 points. Hopefully, we can see a couple of sort of partnerships coming together as well this week for Ireland. Build a bit more continuity, some new combinations here and there, and see if they can build going into that South Africa game the week after as well. So huge game for Ireland, and they'll be looking to build some real momentum there. Moving on, Scotland, Argentina, two sides looking to build again towards that World Cup. Scotland looking to bounce back. They'll need a real morale booster. Argentina, after winning so convincingly in Cardiff, they'll want to make it 2 out of 2 against the home nation sides. How do you reckon this one's going to go?
I think this will be probably one of the closest games of the weekend. It's definitely one of the more exciting ones in terms of a like-for-like battle. There's only a place separating them. Argentina ahead, just about. But it's so tough to call because I like both nations. I like how Argentina play. I like Scotland as a secondary home nation almost.
That's controversial, and as an Englishman there.
Well, it's the lesser of three evils.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay. Well, that's surprising. I didn't think you'd say that, but fair enough.
No, yeah, I definitely Scotland would be my number 2. Because I'm so close to the north, that's my argument.
Yeah.
But I reckon Argentina win it. I think they just present a lot more quality. They've got a lot. Again, it's squad depth that is going to come back to hurt Scotland. That impact off the bench that they don't have compared to other sides. And yeah, I think Argentina will nick it. I don't think it'll be a big one, but I think it's got Argentina by 6.
Okay, Argentina by 6. I'm gonna go Scotland by 4. I think Scotland
Okay.
will bounce back. They need it. They'll need a victory. They'll be hurting after last week, and I think they'll just use that emotional energy to drive them through. Yeah, very tight game, very interesting one to watch because there are two sides and sort of a very fairly level pegging. So we'll see how it happens there. And then it's the game that me and you are going to on at 5:40 on Saturday evening. Wales versus Japan, 12th versus 13th in the world. Never has 12th versus 13th in the world had such a big billing as this one does. At the Principality Stadium, Steve Tandy's second game in charge. Wales need to win this one, don't they?
Yeah, massively. Because if they're going to win one of their games in this Autumn Nations, it is this one. Japan's problem recently has been scoring tries. I think it was one against South Africa. It was one against Ireland. And yeah, they're good teams, but they still had a chance to get in though. Whereas I think they'll get just more than just one chance to score against Wales. I think they'll score a couple. The big question obviously is how much are Wales going to miss Jack Morgan, because he was everywhere on Sunday. Like, it was, the fact that he was the one that was chasing down Carreras' try when Matera put the kick in. I mean, how's he ended up there is my question. But it's going to be another close game. But I think Wales have started to find their groove. They've had practice of, playing with each other now, playing to a system. I think Rhys Sammett's going to start. He's going to be electric. And I'm going to say Wales to win by 12.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I probably going to go Wales by 7. I don't quite think. I think Japan showed a lot of good qualities last week against Ireland, and I think when you play this up against Wales, who are still developing under a new coach, I think it'll be quite tight. But I think that Welsh crowd will really understand the absolute need to win for this week, and I think they will get it done. It'll be good to see if Rhys Sammet can make a start potentially. He showed a couple of signs coming off the bench last week. Got a big roar as well from the stadium, and potentially see him come back and potentially get a try, or and how Wales can really develop in this game, because that'll be the key question, and how Steve Tandy is looking with this Welsh side. But yeah, I fancy Wales for that one by 7. Moving on to Italy, South Africa. Big game for Italy in terms of it's a bit of a free hits going up against South Africa. No one really expects that they can lay a glove on South Africa or not, because just they're so dominant. But after that victory against Australia last week, they'll be coming in with some optimism. And what do you reckon is going to happen in this one?
Oh, I think Italy might win. No, I'm joking. Obviously, South Africa are going to put 40 odd points on them. Maybe even with a second string team, but equally, I wouldn't be surprised if South Africa go full strength still, just to carry some momentum on going into the weekend after against Ireland. No let off, no rest for the wicked sort of thing. I think this probably be a similar squad that we see. It has been said that Lou Diaga has received a 4-match ban for his challenge on Teddy Ramos. But equally, they've got incredible squad depth, so it doesn't really matter. But no, I think South Africa will win this. Italy will give them a good run for their money. As always, the quality, the speed that South Africa have will just completely kill them. And I think it might be a bit more demoralising and therefore drop off for Italy. So I'm going to say South Africa to win by like 30 odd points. I think it'll just be a typical South African performance. If Italy do beat them, though,
I'm gonna go a little bit of a different flavour. I'm not going to obviously go for the Italy win, because I think that would be fairly unwise. But I'm gonna go South Africa by 20. I think 20 points.
Okay.
I think Italy will come out. They'll play some nice rugby, and I think they'll score a couple of tries. But I think, as you say, South African dominance will just be a bit too much for them. I think it's also it's almost like a bit of not an off week for South Africans, and they won't be saying it like that, but perhaps subconsciously, having had those big tests, having had that big test against France and have the big test against Ireland the week after, is perhaps maybe a bit of a lull game for them against sort of a weaker side. So that's where I sort of think Italy could maybe come into it a little bit and put a couple of points on the board. So I'll go South Africans by 20 in that game. And then it is the Flying Fijians who take a trip from London to Bordeaux this time in France to face a hurting French side after their loss to the Springboks last week. What do you reckon is going to happen with this one?
I think France have a point to prove. They've got to uphold certain factors of their game. The fact that they've been overturned so dramatically in their nation's stadium again by South Africa once again, it's going to hurt. They need to find a bit more bite to come at. It's kind of, you get beaten up by the big guys, and then you've got to go just absolutely thump one of the little guys to get yourself back up and ready almost. Yeah, I think
Hope
it's
you're
going to
not
be.
talking in literal terms here, Dom.
No, not at all. I don't know. Maybe I'll put it in rugby terms. You get smashed by one of the big second rows, so you've got to go absolutely level the 9 to make yourself feel a little bit better.
Yeah. Build a bit of confidence. Yeah, that makes sense.
Exactly. So, but as I say, they've got Australia the week after. So they'll be, and that'll be another game that they'll want to claim victory in and uphold their values and their rugby ways, and also just keep the pressure off from teams below, because if they slip up much more, they could be in a bit of danger looking towards the World Cups. I think France will claim it. Fiji will obviously come out hard hitting, but it won't make too much difference. I think it will be France to win by 18.
Yeah, I go France by, I think, 22. I think they'll come back a bit this weekend.
I think yours is probably a bit more realistic.
I just fancy them more in attack than I fancy England, so that's sort of my reason for that one. On a French perspective, it's very disappointing the way they've actually lost their last 4 games, and that just seems ridiculous, to be honest. Because they had to obviously send like a weekend side to New Zealand, which is just an absolute travesty, to be honest, because that would have been an absolute cruncher of a 3-test series if they could send the side, I guess, that the Springboks with to New Zealand. So yeah, you're exactly right there. They need to sort of look behind them and sort of consolidate their rightful position in the sort of top 4 or 5. But yeah, I think they'll manage to do that this weekend. And that rounds us up on all our Quilter Nations series chats for the week. Now, there was about 12 games that we managed to get through there, and that was pretty good going, but absolutely huge games this weekend. Dom, you had a bit of, just on a personal note, you had a bit of more commentary last weekend. Do you want to just finish us up on that, just to take the focus away from the Quilter Nations series a wee bit?
Yeah, so last week I had the pleasure once again of commentating on one of the champ games, England's second tier of rugby. It was a meaty affair on a Friday night in Nottingham as the Archers faced Cornish Pirates. A very good game. It was three tries each in the first half. Also, two yellow cards in quick succession for Cornish Pirates, which may have looked like Nottingham had a way in, but to no avail. Cornish Pirates came out in the second half, disregarded the man advantage, and just absolutely took Nottingham to the slaughter and wrapped up a very good game. But yeah, very exciting game. Helping with my career in all of this. Yeah, very grateful. And more.
You believe you were getting very excited on comms as well?
Yeah, if anybody's interested, you can go onto the Club of Rugby TV Instagram page. You can find last week's highlights of me absolutely shouting down the microphone. But hey, someone's got to be excited about it and get everybody else excited. So
yeah,
share
that's
the
what
passion.
It's all about. Yeah, you're just channeling your inner Nick Mullins is all. That's it. As simple as that. Yeah, exactly. No, very good. We're glad to hear that, and hopefully we'll hear a few more opportunities for you in the future as well. But yeah, no, well, that's been the Rock and Roll Show, episode 19 of season 3, and we'll see you next week when we chat about potentially a Wales win. We'll see you then. Goodbye.